We want to now look at kinked budget lines. Now, the idea behind kinked budget lines is that budget lines are not always straight lines. Now, kinked budget lines occur in situations where the price of a good changes after buying a certain amount, which is going to change the slope. Because, like we talked about, slope is the negative ratio prices. So, after you buy a certain amount of a good, the price will change, which will change the slope. So, the budget line will no longer be a straight line with constant slope because the slope will change after a certain point. So the budget line is now not a single line as the slope changes at specific points where the price changes after you buy a certain amount. Now, king budget line can occur due to quantity discounts, subsidies, or taxes that apply only beyond certain consumption thresholds. Because then only after a certain point, after purchasing a certain amount of a good, will the price change, slope will change, and it will no longer be a straight line. Let's look at this example. We have this example where your income is $200 and the price of pants, which is the good which we're taking as X1, on the horizontal axis, the price is $20, and price of shirts, which is we're taking as X2 on the vertical axis, is $10. So now let's bring in quantity discounts. Now, quantity discounts I say is that the first six pants uh, you can buy at a price 50% less the original price. So in this case, the marginal price of pants changes from 10 to 20 after sixth pair of pants because the first six pants get a 50% discount. So the regular price is $20. So if this is the first six pants, you need to only pay $10. So now over here, because the price changes after the sixth pair of pants, so when we're basically mathematically writing down the equation of budget line, so we will look at x1 less than equal to 6 and x1 greater than 6. So we will consider the budget line as two segments, one that is relevant for x1 less than equal to 6, one that is relevant for x1 greater than 6, because it's only after the sixth pair of pants that the price changes. So first we look at budget line equation for x1 less than equal to 6. Now we know the budget line equation is P1 x1 plus P2 x2 is income. Now here the price for units of x1 that are less than equal to 6 where the discount is applicable is going to be 50% the original price or 0.5 into 20, right? So here for x1, since we're looking at units of x1 less than 6, so the price relevant is the discounted price, which is 50% of original price at 0.5 into 20. And the shirts don't have any such discounts, we'll just do plus P2 x2, so 10x2, and the income 200. Now from here, you can just solve for x2 in terms of x1 because later we want to plot this budget line as well, and we're going to plot it with x2 on the vertical axis and x1 on the horizontal axis. So if we write it in this form that x2 in terms of x1, then this will make it easy to identify the slope and vertical intercept. Now let's look at the part of the budget line equation for x1 greater than 6. Now over here, now when we're looking at the budget line equation for units of x1 greater than 6. So now we have to first see, okay, we reach this portion of x1 greater than 6 after buying 6 units of x1, right? But once we purchased 6 units of x1, only then we came at a point where x1 was greater than 6. So first let's incorporate the cost of the first 6 units of x1, which we had to buy before we reach this point x1 greater than 6. Because say x1 was equal to 8, then in your budget line you first bought the 6 units at the discounted price and the remaining units, which was 8 minus 6 2 at the regular price. So over here, when you're looking at the budget line equation for x1 greater than 6, you do first have to count for the first 6 units of x1 because it's only after buying those first 6 units that we reached at this portion where x1 is greater than 6. So the first 6 units are bought at the discounted price, 50% of the regular price 20. So this is 0.5 into 20 into 6. Now this is important because we are looking at units of x1 greater than 6, but you only reach this portion after buying 6 units of x1, so we have to incorporate their price here. And then for the remaining units, which is x1 minus 6, once you bought the first 6 units, then the remaining units are x1 minus 6. You buy them at the regular price of 20. And then this is still 10x2, P2x2, and this is income 200. Again, from here, solve for x2 in terms of x1, right? Because again, we want to plot it with x2 on vertical axis and x1 on horizontal axis. So if we solve for x2 in terms of x1, it just makes it easier to identify the slope and vertical intercept when graphing it. Right, so just keep in mind when you're looking at the budget line equation for x1 greater than 6, even though we're looking at units of x1 greater than 6, but you still have to count for the cost of the first 6 units in your budget line because it's only after purchasing those first 6 units that you arrive at this portion, right? So if x1 was 10, then we in our budget line we would have to count for the cost of all 10 units, right? The first 6 units were the discounted price 10, and the remaining 4 units would be at the regular price 20. So we can write our budget line as a function of P1, P2, and income, where it's all those combinations of x1 and x2, such that x2 is 20 minus x1 for x1 is less than equal to 6, and x2 is 26 minus 2x1 for x1 is greater than 6. So the budget line is now defined for two line segments, one for x1 less than equal to 6 and one for x1 greater than 6. And the reason we're defining it based on 6 is because it's after you buy the 6 pair of pants, the price changes. So the kink where you split it into two line segments is going to be where the price changes. Here the price changes at the after buying the 6 pair of pants, so it's defined as two line segments based upon x1 less than equal to 6 and x1 greater than 6. Right now, if we graphically want to plot this, where we said on the horizontal axis we have x1, on the vertical axis we have x2. So like we said, the budget line is now defined by two line segments, one for x1 less than equal to 6 and one for x1 greater than 6. Like we just established, for x1 less than equal to 6, what will be the region before the kink? The equation is this, we just found this, x2 is 20 minus x1. Now from here, let's identify the slope. The reason why we wrote it as x2 in terms of x1, because now when you want to graphically plot it, it will be very easy to identify slope and vertical intercept, because it is in the form y is equal to mx plus c, because y here is x2 and x here is x1. So since it's already in the nice form of y is equal to mx plus c, we can identify the slope here as -1, the coefficient of x1, which is on the x-axis. And the vertical intercept we know would be where x1 is 0, so it's x2 is 20. And then from here we can identify the kink point. We know the kink occurs at 6 because it's after buying the 6 pair of pants, the price changes. So kink point is when x1 is 6, so x2 is 14. Now we know for x1 greater than 6, the budget line is defined by this equation. x2 is 26 minus 2x1, so this is the region after the kink. Again, this is also in the y is equal to mx plus c form. So we can identify the slope as -2 as the coefficient of x1. Now, before the kink, we are interested in finding what the vertical intercept is, and after the kink, we're interested in finding what the horizontal intercept is to plot it. So with the horizontal intercept, we just put the variable on y-axis, which is x2 as 0, and it will turn out x1 is 13. So to graphically plot it, all you need is in the region before the kink, you need to figure out what the vertical intercept is and slope is. You need to see what the kink point is, and after the kink, just figure out what the horizontal intercept and slope is. Now just put it all on a graph. When I put it all in a graph, so like we identified, the kink happens at 6. So first I label this point 6, 14. This is my kink, right? And then I know my vertical intercept in the region for x1 less than 6 before the kink is 20. We've plotted this here. So you know your kink point 6, 14. You know your vertical intercept is 20. Then you know your horizontal intercept in the region after the kink when x1 is greater than 6 is 13. Once you plotted these 3 points, right? So you plot your kink, you plot your vertical intercept in the region before the kink, you plot your horizontal intercept in the region after the kink. Now we just need to join these with lines. Now how do you know how you make these lines? Here we keep in mind that in the region before the kink, for x1 less than 6, the slope is -1. And in the region after the kink, the slope is -2. So we know so the region after the kink is steeper than the region before the kink. So when you're joining these, so you make sure you make this region flatter and this steeper, because this has slope -1 and this has slope -2, right? So when you're graphically plotting it, so first indicate your kink point, which is 6, 14 in this case, because after the 6 pair of pants, the price changes of pants. And in the region before the kink, we found the vertical intercept is 20, you label it here. And in the region after the kink, we found the horizontal intercept is 13, you label it here. Now you just need to join these 3 points with a line. How will you plot these lines? For this, you look at the slopes. We know the region before the kink has a slope of -1. The region after the kink has a slope -2. In the region before the kink, the budget line is slope -1. In the region after the kink, the budget line is slope -2. So we have to plot the budget line before the kink flatter than the budget line after the kink, right? So just keep in mind, first plot your 3 points. For this, make sure you know what the kink point is, what the vertical intercept before the kink is, what the horizontal intercept after the kink is. And then you have to join these 3 points with line segments. And how you join these line segments, you look at what your slopes of your budget line is before the kink and slope of budget line after kink to see where it is steeper and where it's flatter.